United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Action towards a sustainable future. Presentation overview. Overview of the UNFCCC. The UNFCCC is a global organization dedicated to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and addressing the issue of climate change. In this section, we'll explain what the UNFCCC is and why it is important. History of the UNFCCC. The UNFCCC was established in 1992 with the goal of stabilizing greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere. In this section, we'll explore the history of the UNFCCC, including how it was established and the key events that have shaped it. Key components of the UNFCCC. The UNFCCC has several key components, including the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement. In this section, we will delve into the key components of the UNFCCC and explain what they are and how they work. Future of the UNFCCC. The UNFCCC faces several challenges in the future, including the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to the impacts of climate change. In this section, we will look at the future of the UNFCCC and its potential impact on the world. What is the UNFCCC? International Treaty. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change is an international treaty established in 1992 that aims to address climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and adapting to the impacts of climate change. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The UNFCCC provides a framework for international cooperation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which are the main causes of climate change. Adapting to the impacts of climate change. The UNFCCC also provides a framework for international cooperation to adapt to the impacts of climate change, which are already being felt in many parts of the world. The United Nations. Establishment of the United Nations. The United Nations was established after World War II to promote international cooperation and prevent future conflicts. The organization is committed to promoting peace, security, and human rights around the world. Role of the United Nations in climate change. The United Nations plays a critical role in addressing climate change through initiatives such as the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. The organization brings together governments and other stakeholders to develop and implement policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate the impacts of climate change. The Rio Earth Summit. The Rio Earth Summit was held in 1992 and was a landmark event in the history of the UNFCCC. It brought together world leaders to discuss the urgent need to address global environmental issues such as climate change and pollution. Outcomes of the summit. At the Rio Earth Summit, world leaders signed the UNFCCC Treaty, which laid the groundwork for future global climate change negotiations. The summit also resulted in the adoption of Agenda 21, the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, and the establishment of the Commission on Sustainable Development. The key components of the UNFCCC. Kyoto Protocol. The Kyoto Protocol is an international treaty that aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate climate change. It was adopted in 1997 and entered into force in 2005. Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement is an international treaty that aims to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. It was adopted in 2015 and entered into force in 2016. The Kyoto Protocol. Goals of Kyoto Protocol. The main goal of the Kyoto Protocol was to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions to mitigate climate change. Developed countries were required to reduce their emissions by a certain percentage below their 1990 levels. Successes and failures. The Kyoto Protocol was successful in raising awareness of climate change issues and in creating a framework for international cooperation. However, It failed to achieve its emission reduction targets and was criticized for not including developing countries in the agreement. Impact on the world. The Kyoto Protocol had a significant impact on the world by promoting the use of renewable energy sources and increasing public awareness of climate change issues. It also paved the way for the Paris Agreement, which is the current international agreement on climate change. The Paris Agreement. Goals of the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement aims to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius and pursue efforts to limit it to the 1.5 degrees Celsius to prevent catastrophic climate change. Key components of the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement has several key components, including nationally determined contributions, transparency and accountability, finance and technology transfer. Impact of the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement has the potential to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate the impacts of climate change on the world, including rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and loss of biodiversity. The future of the UNFCCC. Challenges ahead of UNFCCC. The UNFCCC faces several challenges in the years ahead, including rising political polarization and the ongoing impact of climate change. Future of the UNFCCC. The future of the UNFCCC and its potential impact on the world is uncertain, but it is clear that global cooperation and action are necessary to tackle the urgent issue of climate change. The role of the UNFCCC. Raising awareness. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change has been instrumental in raising awareness about the need to address climate change and the impact it has on our planet. It has put pressure on governments and businesses to take action. International cooperation. The UNFCCC has encouraged international cooperation on climate change, bringing countries together to work towards a common goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and mitigating the effects of climate change. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The UNFCCC has been instrumental in promoting the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, which is essential to mitigate the effects of climate change. The Paris Agreement is one of the key milestones in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Future challenges. Political polarization. Increasing political polarization is a challenge for the UNFCCC, as it may hinder progress in addressing climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Impact of climate change. Ongoing impact of climate change is a significant challenge for the UNFCCC as it threatens global food security, water supplies, and biodiversity. Ambition to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The need to increase ambition in reducing greenhouse gas emissions is a major challenge for the UNFCCC as countries must work together to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement and limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Conclusion. The UNFCCC. The UNFCCC is a landmark international treaty that is designed to address climate change. It has had a significant impact on the world, but it faces several challenges in the years ahead. Positive impact on the world. The UNFCCC has had a positive impact on the world by raising awareness of climate change and promoting international cooperation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Challenges ahead. The UNFCCC faces several challenges in the years ahead, including political opposition, funding, and limited involvement from some countries. Thank you.